I-CBT. I'll start again. Well, welcome to I-CBT Fridays. I'm Margaret McCall, and I am a facilitator for this group, along with Mary Hosbrough and Sylvia Levine. The mission of this I-CBT Fridays is for the dissemination and education of everything I-CBT. And I want to, Mary posted in the Facebook group recently asking for presenters, and I just want to offer another invitation here. If you feel comfortable, feel like you have enough knowledge about I-CBT, I would encourage people to think about things you can present. It doesn't have to be a whole module. If you have a special niche within I-CBT or a special interest, it does need to be I-CBT focused because that's our mission in this group, but please reach out to any of the moderators or Mary or Sylvia or myself. We're in charge of coordinating presentations. The summer is coming up, and all three of us will probably be on vacation. So if any of you might have an interest in even jumping in and facilitating here now, we would really appreciate the help, and it'll get more people involved in our process. Today, we're going to be having, usually what we do is have a 30-minute or so presentation, and then we do a discussion with a Q&A. Just please keep in mind the video is being recorded. It will be posted on the I-CBT website, which means that it's accessible to the general public. So if you want to discuss something about a particular client, please make it where it's not going to reveal their identity. And if time allows, we can stop the recording early and discuss particular client information that we don't want to be recorded if somebody has that. I will be monitoring the chat, and if we would allow the presenters to present and save our questions to the end, if you have a question you want to put it in the chat, I can ask it when they're over, or you can just chime in, raise your hand, and we'll try to recognize everybody and all the questions in the chat. So today we're going to have Krista Reed and Tori Morley. We're very appreciative of everybody who jumps in and offers to present in this group. We're all learning from each other. This series of presentations is not so much, it's about the module, but it's more about how clinicians have taken this module and made it their own, what they use in their practice, so that we can learn from others' tricks not tricks, that's a bad word, others' approaches to each of these modules. So they're going to be talking about the tricks and cheats of OCD. Thank you so much, Krista and Tori, and I will turn it over to you guys to introduce yourselves.
I'll go ahead and introduce myself first. Hi, I'm Krista Reed, and I treat OCD and BDD and BFRBs in Wichita, Kansas. And I have been using I-CBT since August.
And I am Tori Morley, and yes, everyone calls me Torley because it's very hard to say Tori Morley. That's okay. I treat OCD and trauma, and I am based in Arizona, where we do not change time. And so all of you that are struggling with the time change, I am not, except that I had to make sure I knew what time we were actually meeting. So when Krista and I were talking, we decided that I would go first. And so I'm going to be first. I just wanted, before I kind of go into what I do that is unique on how I teach this, I just wanted to go over a few, I guess, important points for this module. I think it's important that we remind our clients when we're doing this that the reasoning strategies that we're getting ready to teach them are part of their OCD story. And so sometimes it's even good to have them pull up their story after you've taught all the different reasoning strategies, pull up their story and have them look through their story to find what trick and cheat have they used in their story, so that they can really see how this is applied in their inferential confusion. The other thing is just to remind them that all tricks and cheats make you believe that your reasoning has something to do with reality. And then just kind of helping them remember that it's subjective, it's selective, and it's imaginary. And then we don't question the content. We are questioning how they apply it. So the inferential confusion. So we're not arguing with them. And then, of course, with all OCD, it's just about the distrust of the senses and the reliance on possibility. So those are just some points that I'll go over with my clients just to make sure they really understand those principles before I go into this. So with that, when I first started teaching this module, so this is actually almost in March of last year is when I joined the Facebook group of I-CBT. And so I think I taught my first I-CBT in May, and it's just, I really haven't looked back. But when I first started teaching it, this module, I started to kind of dread it a little because I felt like, I felt like my clients were getting bored. I was feeling nervous because they seemed bored and I didn't know how to make it more interactive. And it was a little hard for me. So, and I also felt like it was so much information, they would walk away and I wasn't sure they were really getting it. So I started thinking, well, what can I do? How can I make this more fun and more interactive? So I created a Jeopardy game for I want to call it trick or treats. I do not know why, but the tricks and treats of OCD. And so what I found, and I'm going to share this in just a minute, but what I found is as you'll work with your clients, you realize that not all clients use all tricks and cheats. They kind of have their favorites that they use, and they don't, do they have to know all the tricks and cheats? I don't know, but it's good for them to understand them because as they go along, they can start to catch them. And so what I found is with this Jeopardy game is that initially they're kind of not getting them right, but by the end of the game, they're like, oh, I'm getting this. And they kind of get excited. And I have found that the next week when they come back, they're saying, hey, I caught myself doing this. And all of a sudden they're using the verbiage and they're recognizing it. And so something about the game and the repetitiveness and the thinking that it requires for them to figure it out, it helps it stick in their brain a little bit more. So I am going to share my game and maybe we can just do a few of these if anyone wants to be brave. So I will tell you that the categories really have nothing to do with the questions and answers. It's just made sense with the I-CBT stuff that we work with. So if anyone wants to be brave and just pick a category and an amount, we'll display a few of these.
I'll go ahead first since I'm one of the people doing this. Let's do, which I love that you said trick or treats, because when Tori and I met, we kept saying that over and over again. We're just like, you know what, let's just change it. Let's tell Fred that he needs to change it to trick or treat because that's what everybody's calling it anyways. Let's do a vulnerable self theme for 100, please.
Okay. This birthmark isn't cancer. Let's see, I need to move my picture. This birthmark isn't cancer now, but I have to keep checking it because it may become cancer later. So what I'll do is I will often, if you can see this now, this is Bronwyn's PowerPoint that I love her PowerPoints, but I'll click over to here because that way they can see all the tricks and cheats. And this is after I've kind of covered them and let them kind of think through what it is. So what do you think the answer is to this one? Anybody can chime in here.
But maybe later.
Right, this is an easy one. Why isn't it not? There you go. What is but maybe later? Very good. Okay, who wants to do another one?
I'll take doubt for 500.
Okay, oh, you're doing a hard one. My friend often drives off and forgets to lock his garage door, so mine might also be unlocked.
What is mismatching?
You're correct. And what I'll do when I do this, if I'm doing this in person, especially with my teen clients, I have treats. And so if they get it right, they get a treat. They all get treats at the end anyway. So that just kind of makes it a little more fun too. Okay, who wants to do another one?
How about the con artist for 100?
Okay. I heard a story on the news about a person who poisoned his friend. So now I worry that other people might be trying to poison me. What do you think?
Mismatching?
You're right. And it's funny, sometimes I'll get clients, they'll pick, because I have all of them in here, and they'll pick randomly the same ones together. It's just, which I don't know why, but it happens sometimes. Okay, let's just do a few more.
Possibility for 400.
Okay. If I don't eat an apple a day, I will get cancer someday. I'll slip over here so you guys can see the answers.
Isn't
Any
that
other-
reverse reasoning?
If I don't eat an apple a day, I will get cancer someday.
Maybe later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is, but maybe later. Okay, and I love that because even if they get the answer wrong, we have the opportunity then to discuss it. And some of these are so similar, and if they can show me how this would be that answer, I totally give it to them. My goal is for them to see how they can have inferential confusion in their reasoning. And so if they're seeing that, that's what I want them to see. Okay, let's just do two more.
Possibility 200s.
I heard a story about a family getting sick from undercooked meat. So now I worry that I undercook my meat.
Mismatching.
Mismatching, yeah.
I think
Getting all-
it's mismatching.
You've got that one down really well.
About tricks for 500.
Okay. I know meteors exist, so I'm constantly checking the sky for falling meteors and wearing hard hats.
Distrust of the senses.
Out of context facts.
Holy cow.
So meteors exist
Mhm.
doesn't mean there's one falling right now. And like not trusting your senses, that can work, right? We can talk about that. How, well, if I don't see a meteor in the sky, but I'm still doubting that there is one, I'm not trusting my senses. So I am pretty good about just kind of going with my clients and talking about it. And it's not like I'm wanting to shame anyone for getting an answer wrong. I have a lot of fun with them. We do a lot of laughing and a lot of, whatever. And then sometimes I will ask them to give me an example of maybe from their obsessive doubt. Like, and clients usually will tell me, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Clients will often tell me, oh, I do this one a lot. So as we go through it, they'll say, oh, I do this, and they'll see that. And I'll say, oh, you do? Okay, well, tell me how you do that. And so then they'll tell me. And so that is so great when they can actually see what they're doing and catch it and then tell you about it. So you're like, oh, okay. So now they know they're looking out for it and they get it. And so that for me is, for this module, I think is a valuable thing, is for them to start to see the strategies OCD is using to cause them to have the confusion. And whatever name they want to call it, it doesn't really matter. And we kind of go through that. It's more that they can start to see the strategies and name them and catch them in that. Okay, so that's kind of my thing. That's what I do. And I'm going to turn it over to Krista now and let her have her stuff.
Thank you, Tori. That was absolutely amazing. And I know when you and I met last week and we shared just our different ideas, what's funny is we started out talking about our different ideas, not knowing that we both play games in this module. And we both find different ways to be able to have fun with it. And I think the Jeopardy idea is just an absolute blast. And another thing that Tori and I talked about when we met, and I'm sure you all have noticed this, is how similar this module is to just pretty basic standard CBT thought distortions. I mean, most of the time that we have somebody coming in, they've already had your basic CBT because they might have gone to somebody who diagnosed them with generalized anxiety disorder, or maybe unfortunately somebody who says they treat OCD but used more of the standard approaches instead of the approaches that actually are specifically for OCD. So I've had people come in, say, I know about magnification, minimization, sabotaging, yada, yada, yada. And when you look at this, you really can pick apart just the ones that really can kind of fit this. And so I find that by the time I get to this module with my clients, they're like, I feel like this is really similar to what my previous therapist did. The wording is different. And we really find a way, okay, so yeah, that's very similar for what you and your client or you and your previous therapist did. But this one is going to focus so much more again on that inferential confusion. I'm so excited to be able to talk about this module, because I think if I were to talk about other modules, I wouldn't be nearly as excited, because I find this one, you could play around with it and have a lot of humor. And that's exactly what I do. And I love that Tori talked about how she incorporates module 3. And I think in the presentation that Amanda gave months ago, she talked about incorporating module 5. I actually incorporate module 1, and I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you exactly how I do that. So I've actually made these sheets for my clients. Okay, because everybody see those okay? So it'll actually have, all of the obsessional sequence there, everything from module 1, but then at the very end, we add in I always want to say trick or treats, the con artist stuff. I'm going to say that because my brain does not want to say what it actually is. We do the con artist stuff. And this way, not only the ones that we've already talked about, not only the obsessions that we have done, the logic stuff, the obsessional story, we've talked about OCD bubble, but maybe there's some ones that, maybe there are some newer ones, because we know how OCD can morph and change, and one thing that you worked on last week might not be as present anymore. And so, okay, now I'm having this other type of obsession pop in. And this is a really cool one to be able to say, okay, so this is an example, now that we're all the way at module 10, this is an example of how you can use the very first module in real time. And this is the one that I asked them to kind of do at their house. This is the one, I have a sample one. This is the one that we do in session. And I even say, let's even think of some ones that maybe don't apply to you. Like, what are some other different kinds of obsessions? That way they can really get more of a glimpse as to potentially how not only the sequence can work, but with the tips and tricks. And then I literally just copied and pasted this from the book. These are just the different types of tips and tricks, as we know, but this way my clients have it. They have that worksheet that they're going home with. This is kind of their homework. But how I explain this, and I will explain this even more in sessions, but how I explain it in session that quite frankly isn't going to put my clients to sleep, is I have made a game. I'll say, well, let's play a little game. I love humor. Who doesn't? I love memes, and I actually made memes relating to the different tips and tricks. And so just kind of like with Mary, you all got to do her little Jeopardy thing. I'm going to show you a meme, and I want you to guess which tips and tricks this meme might be referring to. All right. Maids don't wash comforters. All hotel beds have semen on them. Which one might this one be? Any ideas?
Out of context?
It could be out of context. Yeah.
I was going reverse reasoning.
I had down reverse reasoning, but also I think that could also put up to really helpful discussion that, sometimes within OCD, we find this need for perfectionism. If you can't find like the perfect one to fit, that doesn't matter. Because that's not the point. The whole point is that we realize the irrelevancy within OCD and finding different ways to kind of poke fun at them. So one thing that I do with my clients, I don't do this at intake because it's very inappropriate. I do this when we have rapport, when they're very much familiar with the pathology of OCD and what treatment's going to look like. I'll put it like this. I'll say, hey, you're awesome. You're great. You're here in therapy. You're doing hard work. OCD is a moron. But OCD is a moron that's trying to convince you it's not. And it's trying to convince you in ways that are important to you. And so I say, why don't we poke the bear? Why don't we kind of make fun of it a little bit? And so that's where I love doing these kinds of memes with them, just to say, if you put it with some ridiculous picture, you can really see how at the end, they're silly. They don't have to carry a lot of weight, more weight than they need to be. All right. This is my little devil child. This is actually one that I have gotten. I actually made this specifically for somebody. They were afraid that they were an evil person. And if they're an evil person, then the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, which means, of course, their child is going to be evil. Which one might this one be?
That sounds like reverse reasoning as well.
It can be reverse reasoning, sure. And that's, again, I think where it's nice to have just different ideas and different discussions. Because, yeah, it could be that. It could even be maybe later. It can even be a mismatching. There could be so many different things. I'm not here to tell my client if it's right or wrong. I kind of just say, if my client says that they identify with one, we can kind of go with it. Not a big deal. I have a headache. It is a tumor.
Sorry.
I actually did laugh when I made this one because I love Kindergarten Cop. Anybody have any idea?
Is that one reverse reasoning? Or out of context facts? I don't know.
Living the fear. So a headache, you're simulating reality. Well, this is a headache. It's a tumor. That's exactly what it is. Yep. You can't convince me otherwise. Oh, I turned off my video. That's not what I meant to do. All right. Got checked for cancer again this week. So I got that going for me, which is nice. Any idea what old Bill Murray from Caddyshack might be doing here? He's getting checked for cancer again. And that's just kind of how it is. Apparently he's doing it frequently.
Living the fear.
He's doing a lot of checking. He's going deep.
I think I also thought it's almost like a double Jeopardy because he's doing it every time.
Mhm.
Like distress of the senses also.
Yeah.
He's heard, he's fine, and he doesn't believe it.
And what's happening right here is we're hearing just so many different ideas and so many different concepts. This is exactly what happens in my sessions is, again, we're not looking for the perfect one because I might have an idea of what something is and my client might have an idea. And you know what? Neither one of us have to be wrong because that's not the point of this. All right, nothing. Me just running away from impending doom. What is this girl doing? This was me for years, running. Anytime I would turn off the light to my basement, I would just like run up the stairs super fast because there I was absolutely going to get killed. Definitely the second the lights turned out.
Living the fear.
Living the fear, also distrusting the senses. Because the light's out. That doesn't make any sense. Plus, I wanted to use this little girl so bad. So I was super happy that I could figure out something to make sense of it all. The internet exists. Me. Maybe he is on Ashley Madison. Which, if those of you don't know, Ashley Madison is a site where married people can find other people to have affairs.
Out of context.
Out of
Out of
context.
Text.
Yep, out of context. Very good. The look on your face when you realize you unlocked the door after checking.
Double
Double
jeopardy.
Jeopardy.
Double
Jeopardy. Very good. And this is me. I always like to throw in something really silly. And I can't read it because mine's kind of black. So I doubted I was an ugly child. And upon further investigation, the doubt was unquestionably accurate.
Going deep.
Could be going deep, could also be testing it out. I'm doing some investigation. Let's see to see if this doubt was true or not. And apparently the doubt is true. I was an adorable child. Okay. So any questions about any of that? I think I don't know. I always find it best that when we have these topics, when we're presenting kind of just anything, if you can find a different way to be able to make humor and engage your clients, like Tori had with the Jeopardy, like I have with the memes, it makes something that a lot of our clients are afraid to talk about. And it makes a really difficult situation something that, hey, I'm giving you these tools that you actually can poke the bear. You can find different ways to show that there is this level of imagination. There is this level of irrelevancy. And I will even recommend my clients, I say, hey, there are free meme apps. Download one. Why don't you make some memes? And then we can even talk about that next time and figure out different ways that you can create your own obsessions into memes. And we can have a little bit of fun with it.
Wow, that was amazing. You guys rock. And this is such a great example of why inviting members in to share their approaches and the way they do it give us all such great ideas. I love both of those approaches. Is that, were you done? I want to make sure. Yeah, awesome job. Well, we have one, I mean, I think you guys explained it so well. We have one, the biggest question is, will you share your slides and your games with the group? So yeah, so I maybe put it on the Facebook page. And then Sylvie had a question. I may be missing some. I'll ask Sylvie's first. Her question was, so yeah, once they identify the trick and cheat, what next? What do you do then? Anybody want to answer?
So if they've identified the trick and cheat, we help them understand how it takes them away from reality, how it's we help them understand the inferential confusion. So why is it a trick or treat? Why is it a trick or treat? I am not going to get that right. Even in my sessions, I blunder that all the time. But why is it? Where did that take you beyond your senses? And so once you've identified it, you help them understand how they're applying this trick to be confused, how it's drawing them in to the obsessive doubt. And I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely, because it brings you back. It gives you a great tool to come back to the reality, right? Reality of the senses and the real self, right? Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, just like we learned in module 2 about the logic, I feel like this is another way that allows our clients to have this sense of validation that our obsessions are in fact not random. You know, we're having this logic piece that why it's so convincing. And then we have this tips or tricks side that's saying that, you know, if it's worded in a certain way, that not only it can combine in that logic and just the way, because it feels so real. And, you know, talking about just that level of validation with clients, I find that they really, really appreciate that, where, you know, we don't get that with ACT. We don't get that with ERP. And this is just a really pretty way just to say, like, there's a reason for these thoughts, and there's a reason why as not to sound derogatory, but you're not crazy. Your brain is constructed in this manner to trick you, and it's being successful. And the more you learn about the different types of tricks, you can overcome that.
I'm going to go back to the slides and the games. And I had a hard time getting on today. I was on time, and then I needed to click on the Zoom link instead of the Facebook link. So I missed parts of it, which is also why I wanted these things to be shared. I think, though, the slides are, I keep going back to this as someone that does not have lived experience. These slides help me conceptualize it better myself. And I work with all ages, and many of these are really awesome tools to engage youth with, or children even. But I do have a question I have taken a stab at a couple Canva cards and a Christmas photo card to my family. But how did you go about creating these? I'm just curious, because I don't want to just, I mean, it would be so awesome if people did share, but I understand there was a lot of probably blood, sweat, and tears, at least it would be for me, creating these things. I just love to know how you got around to it and what was the creative process.
With the one that I used with module 1, just by sheets, when it had all the different types of tips and tricks attached. I use Canva for that because I love Canva a lot as well. And then the memes, I use the app. It's free. It's just called Meme Generator. And there are literally hundreds of different kinds of pictures that you can use and that you can pick. You don't have to sign up for it. It's not going to be something to where you're going to get a bunch of emails or get tapped on with some fees later. And you're right. It is very, I use this with adolescents, even though, like, I know there's still a lot of research and work to be done in regards with minors. This is such a amazing way that adolescents and kids as well, because there's a lot of metaphor that goes into this. They really attach to this, and it's fun. Like they get to do something fun. Like if they're already on their phones and they're watching other people's memes, why can't they create their own?
Yes, and this is work, going to therapy. They don't want to be doing this. So if any way we can make it engaging and interesting, and even in their language with media, it's hard to keep up. I'm more and more of a dinosaur, but I am I'm finding my way, and thanks so much. That's awesome material. Thanks.
I'll say that for mine, there's just a free website you can go to create your own Jeopardy game. You can put in your own categories, questions, answers, all that. I will share that on the Facebook page, but just know that if you change it, it changes it for everyone. So if you want to change it, you feel free to copy and paste what's mine and put in your own. But if you want to specialize it for a particular client or something, it's super easy to use. It's very user friendly, but I'll share the link for the one that I did for everyone.
Sylvie asked a question about the difference between let's discuss it and going deep.
So the way I understand this is that let's discuss it is just, I'm looking in here, somebody kind of talked a little bit about it. It's a lot of ruminating, trying to figure it out. It leads to another question and another question. Whereas going deep is more like, well, if I just had this next evidence or this next, if I could, like the water one, if I could get a microscope, I would see the germs in there. Or like on my Jeopardy game, I have one where somebody thinks they have to delete all of their accounts on the web because he believes it's being used inappropriately. And so if he could just see who actually works at the company, he would know, he would find there's criminals that work there. So he's going deeper into his imagination, you know, creating all of this stuff that he believes is actually real that he has no evidence for. And so for me, that's how I kind of differentiate the difference. But again, I think so much of it is just if they can understand that there is some confusion there, that's really all that matters.
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback off of Tori just because I think that there is so much bleed over with so many of these tips and tricks, very similar to the different thought distortions. And if you have clients that are very familiar with the standard CBT thought distortions, say, well, can you have a thought and multiple one of those thought distortions could potentially be at play? Or maybe you can argue that it's this one, but maybe it's this. The thing is that if you're struggling to define between going deep or let's discuss, I'd say, you know what, does it really matter? I mean, it doesn't necessarily matter. The thing is that you realize that there's a tip and trick that is involved to begin with. That's, you know, going to be more important.
Yeah, I wasn't concerned necessarily about know the exact difference one or the other, rather that I was missing a trick. So that's very helpful, Tori, when you're saying one leads you to rumination while the other one just brings you deeper into that alternative reality. It's like, in a way, they're connected, right? And what you're saying, Krista, is almost like emotional reason is another way of saying living the fear. It's just like much bigger, perhaps. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I'm not sure where Bronwyn posted it. It might have been in the Facebook group or it might be elsewhere, but she broke up all of the tricks and cheats into kind of 3 general categories to show that, you know, again, there is so much overlap with these. And to me, that's really helpful. So again, I'm not sure if it's in the Facebook group or if it's just something in one of her 87 canvas.
Yeah, that's very helpful because kind of by breaking it out in 3 categories, it's easier to understand them as different strategies that the OCD uses. Mm-hmm.
Is that also in the book? Just a quick question. The 3 different larger categories. I feel like I saw that in the book, the manual. Not sure.
No, I
Somebody
think
else?
that's just part of Bronwyn's genius.
Oh, okay.
You know, when we talk about cognitive distortions that we use for traditional CBT, there are 3 process distortions that are mentioned. I don't think they're mentioned in the clinician's manual, but they're mentioned in the Beyond Reasonable Doubt. And those are all or nothing thinking, overgeneralization, and personalization. And those are 3 that I plan on adding to my Canva doc for, and blending, which is not one of the ones that is mentioned in the actual tricks and cheats, is mentioned in another chapter, but that is also a trick and cheat of OCD, is the blending. So there are more than these that are mentioned throughout. Somebody posted the tricks and cheats categories in the chat. Amanda did.
Yeah, I like what Margaret said about, you know, there's more than these. And I think it's really about listening to your clients and helping them figure out where have they left reality? Where is their inferential confusion? And so this is a fun way. It's a great start. It gives, you know, fun names. It's a great thing to do with your clients. But I think being careful about not getting so caught up in the names and exactly what it is, and more about really where has your client left reality? Where have they gone beyond their senses? And what has caused them to do that? And that's really what you're looking for here.
I don't know if anybody else had the same feeling that you had, Tori, about when I got to module 10, I I got a little stuck on it too. It got confusing, and I felt like it got rote, and I've gotten more creative with it and I've found ways to do it. But I absolutely love both of your approaches to module 10. I felt the same thing when I got there. And if we've got some new members who haven't gotten there yet, this is going to be really helpful for them not to get in that stuck kind of feeling, for sure.
And I'll just say, just from my own experience, and I know we've all had these discussions. I remember this discussion really heavily last summer, where a lot of us were learning about it and kind of like guarded, like this is a cognitive approach. How are you going to do a cognitive approach for something like OCD? And the thing is that, I-CBT provides us such a beautiful foundation, and being a part of this community and learning, as you can see, Tori and I are teaching the exact same thing in different ways, and we're still able to get the point across. We're able to use the foundation that's in the manual and find ways to make a spin on it to where it can translate to all ages and our clients in so many different ways. And so when you hear something like, ooh, I'm a therapist, I'm new to this is a cognitive approach, have fun with it. Be creative. If you're somebody that, I don't know, I'm just going to pick something super random. If you're into music, find a way to incorporate that. If you're into movies, find a way to incorporate sports, the limit does not exist. Yes, there is going to be a lot of work that you can put into this, but I've made those memes once and I get to use them over and over and over again. And then my clients get to make their own. And those are the ones that they get to hold on to.
Tori, do you ever incorporate your clients' memes into your slideshow?
I do. I always ask permission first. But yeah, actually some of those that are in there are from my clients, and it's fun. Like I said, I always get permission, and they know I share this with other people, and they obviously no names, but then when I'm doing it with them and theirs comes up, they go, oh, I know this one. So it's kind of fun for them. Yeah.
Do you do that, Krista, as well?
I don't, just because one, I already have them there and I know how I operate. Like I see my clients from 9 to 5, and outside of that, if my client's like, hey, can you add this? If I don't do it in that moment, it is forgotten from my brain for the rest of my life. And I just also like for them to know that this is something that they can kind of hold on to themselves. So.
I do that too with my, as I work on my Canva docs, I ask clients, well, what is yours? Because we just keep adding different ones. I have different examples of each trick. And then we add theirs, and with their permission, of course. They know it's a slideshow that's going to be shared with others. So it kind of gives them a little bit of ownership, and they feel like they're helping someone else as well. So I think that's really cool that y'all do that. Right.
I have a question. Does the group find that certain cheats and tricks, or whatever it's called, are more prevalent in certain forms or types of OCD? Like, for instance, living the fear, let's say, in more illness anxiety, for instance, or testing it out in sexual theme OCD, or is that there's no like a rule or things like that? I was just curious.
I don't know if there's a rule, but I'll just say, just from my own experience, I see a lot of emetophobia, health-related stuff, somatic stuff, contamination sometimes within living the fear. I see, a lot of health stuff with living the fear. That's just my own experience, though. I'd be curious to hear what other people have to say.
Yeah, that has been my experience as well. And I found it hard because there is a physical sensation that is feeding the doubt. It's hard to see how they're getting tricked into that.
They're mismatching because just because you're having a physical sensation doesn't mean that it's being caused by whatever the fear is. So my window's open, I just sneezed. That doesn't mean that they're related to one another. It's just two facts.
And again, going back to the distortions, it will be like emotional reasoning too. And going back to the I-CBT model is out of context, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I really paid attention to certain themes having certain tricks that they use. I just find, I think it's more like the client's, their own personality, how it works within them, because I can have people that have pedophilic OCD, and some of them it's testing it out. Others, there's a lot of avoidance on that one. Or, just kind of the living the fear, I think on that one. There's like, I don't know, it's just, it really depends on the client's personality, but I find that individual clients tend to have 2 or 3 tricks that they use a lot.
I find that clients who have this vulnerable self theme that they could be somebody that they're not, like a pedophile or a psychopath, or there's a lot of reverse reasoning going on in there, because if you look at their reasoning models or the reasons, it's, well, a person who has an erection when they see or pedophiles get sexually excited, have an erection when they see children. I have an erection when I see children, therefore I'm a pedophile, which is reverse reasoning, right? And the same way with psychopaths. One of my clients had Ted Bundy was a charming, kind of charismatic guy, handsome, and people have told me I'm a charming, kind of charismatic, handsome guy. Therefore, he was a sociopath, psychopath. I must be a psychopath. So there's a lot. I find that in the reasoning process. It's 1:50, guys. We have the opportunity to discuss cases. If anyone, unless anyone has any more questions about tricks and cheats,